Let me know.
Yep,
All
you're
right.
good.
Peace and great blessing, everyone. Thank you for joining me. If you're new, please like and subscribe below. Welcome back, everybody else. Today's topic is about the growing incidence of hatred and violent attacks against our Asian American community. And today we have a representative who is going to talk to us some more about it. And here at Ashford Healing Arts Wellness Center, we're all about healing. We're all about raising humanity and uplifting humanity. And so we're going to talk about this growing concern that's taking place in the Asian community. And we're going to also talk about some solutions and what we can do, all of us, to bring an end to it and to be at peace and in harmony with each other. So, welcome, Brother Brian Wong. And so, I'd like for you to take a moment to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Bryant Wong. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I am the community relations for the Asia Mosaic Fund, which is a grant giving circle to give out to the nonprofit organizations who help our Asian community and immigrant communities at large on providing them services, educational, social, as well as legal services to the communities, as well as keeping their ethnicity alive when some of their ethnicities may be extinct due to political uprisings in the diaspora, as well as just in general not knowing who these people are and endangering their own tribal life.
Hmm. Okay. So is this a local organization or is it throughout the Asian diaspora?
We are a local organization. However, I am connected with the national organizations, which is the Asian American Federation. We also have the Asian American coalitions in DC, and there are other organizations that I'm part of. Philadelphia, of course, is the big one. Philadelphia Chinatown Corporation, Development Corporation is one of the big ones I connect with, as
Mhm.
well as the Philadelphia Suns, which is the largest youth organization, partnering with CMAC and the Northeast Chinese Association here in Philadelphia.
Mhm.
So mostly I stick with Philadelphia, but at times when I need to rise up to go nationally, I will reach out to the other organizations around the Chinatowns across the nation, especially New York. Asian American Federation is the largest Asian American group that we have in the country, and along with the Asian American Coalition, which is our lobbyist group down in DC.
Okay, great. Okay. So let's discuss what is going on in the Asian community and on a national level right now. We're seeing in the last few months a rise in attacks um, on Asian Americans across the country. So it's not isolated incidents by no means. But what do you think this is about? Can you share your thoughts on that?
Sure, absolutely. So back in last year of 2020, the coronavirus breakout has been starting out in Wuhan, China. So the Trump administration has gone out and saying it was the Chinese virus, the Kung Flu virus, calling out that basically if you're from Chinese, you are the enemy for spreading this pandemic. And
Mhm.
so the news media have picked that up. We have never seen an increase of Asian violence to the Asian community prior to 2020. Our violence level is pretty much low towards hatred, but between 2020 to 2021, we went to almost 200% against the Asian community that is reported. There are many of them unreported. So to give you an idea of what this number is, we prior to 2020, we probably only have a few hundred.
Okay.
Right now, we're almost at 3,000 plus incidents being reported
Mhm. And
from
that's per year
2020.
or that's per week or just
No, this
since
is the
last year?
entire from 2020 to
Mhm.
2021 total of 3,800 reported incidents. That's reported. Unreported, we could almost 1.5 times that.
Okay. Okay. And what do you, so you attribute it to people blaming Asian American people with the
with the virus. And we were trying to bring this out last year because in the month of March, we have seen the violence have gone towards the Asian American community has doubled. So just 1 month alone, it was doubled. And we went to the news media, and the news media was just basically denying us to hear our story.
Mm-hmm.
We struggled to get our news reporters to hear our story. Instead, it was covered by Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, the injustice around the police. So we were pretty much brushed under the table, and the
Mm-hmm.
violence in our community continued to rise. While they're protesting about Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, we're just brushed underneath the table, underneath the rug, and saying that, oh, there's nothing bad can happen to them. And I said to them last year, it will take a mass shooting of our community to get our voices out.
Mm-hmm.
And a year later, we now have a mass shooting out in Atlanta where 8 people died and 6 of them were Asians.
Okay.
So I said it last year, and I didn't want to call that out last year, but it happened.
Mm-hmm.
I said it. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes, and that was the argument I had with the news media. And this is with not just this is with the national news level. This is with CNN. This is with the NBC, Comcast. This is with these big shots,
Mm-hmm.
not just a small little independent news media, but with the big news media. That's what I said to them, and they didn't want to hear me. Now all of a sudden, oh, we're gonna have to hear a story now because we just had a mass shooting.
Right. Right.
And now we have an uptick, and now they're broadcasting all this stuff that's been happening in our community for over a year. Now they're saying, oh wow, and now we see the increase. Well, we said there was an increase, and you
And so
didn't
you
hear us out.
and so you all felt like your needs were not being addressed, and your safety and security was not being addressed by the local police.
Exactly, local police, local media, everything.
Not everything.
And it's just and we have Asian reporters who are begging their supervisor to get their story out,
Mm.
and they will say no. And we had a circle with the Asian reporters talking to the Asian community, saying this is what happens. I fought for us, saying I need to get the story out. WHYY PBS actually came out in May last year talking about the history of the Asian American people
Mm-hmm.
that came here from pretty much from slavery
Mm-hmm.
to freedom, and talking about the struggles that we had. Every single immigration law have been placed on Asians. Everybody says, "Oh, they're placed on Muslim countries," blah blah blah. But I tell them, like, if you look at the Muslim population of the world, 60% of the Muslims are who? The Asians.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're doing that, you're actually targeting who? Asians. Every single immigration law bill that you have right now is targeting the Asians. They everybody think it's the Hispanics. Well, yeah, the Hispanics are going to get off are on there too, but the majority of who they're targeting are us. The Chinese Exclusion Act was the first immigration policy ever made.
The China Exclusion Act.
The Chinese Exclusion Act. That was the first immigration policy ever made in the United States, and that was against who? The Chinese people.
Okay.
They
So
were prevented from the gold rush.
share with us some more of the history of Asian discrimination and discrimination practices and hate in the U.S. because a lot of people are not aware of that.
Oh, sure. So, I could say that beginning when we with slavery, let's go start from there. We didn't have just African American slaves. We have Native American slaves. We have Asian slaves. These Asians are coming from India. So in Jamestown, they actually have an ad that says Indian for sale from Asia.
Mm.
So it was an Asian woman that they brought over, trying to advertise her out for slavery. And we were taken from there. We also been railroad was the beginning of it because majority of us came through the railroad. A lot of the Chinese came from the railroad, especially the railroad,
Okay.
to make a living back at home where they were having a lot of political uprisings that back in China.
Okay.
So we have the colonization of Hong Kong, the starting of the British colony of Hong Kong versus China, China versus pretty much the Western because of the opium trade. So now we're having a lot of problems back then, back at mainland, at the home of China. Now they're coming here to the United States to make a better living for themselves. Unfortunately, when the railroad picture was taken, they they took out all the people who actually built the railroad, which were the Asians, and they took a picture of all who the white people.
Mhm.
So right there was discrimination. And then when they couldn't go back to when railroad was completed, they didn't have no place to go. They couldn't go back home. So they took the
Mhm.
jobs that nobody wanted. They took the laundry businesses. They took the restaurants. So why a lot of Asians own dry cleaners and restaurants? Well, because nobody wants those jobs. We took them. Simple as
Okay.
that. We took them, and that's what we have today.
Mhm.
So this is ongoing. So when we take these jobs, they look at the male saying they're all feminine. Well, because of the culture in Asia is that especially with the Korean pop stars wearing makeup, it's more feminine. Back in Korea, that is very very standardish for men to spend a lot of money on facial products, especially in Korea and parts of Japan as well. It's huge. And over here in the United States, they view that as feminine. So they go like, well, these are weak people, and so now they have the what they call the Asian model myth, minority myth. Why we call the model minority? Well, because we are obedient, we don't fight back, we're quiet. They could do whatever they want to us, and they go like, oh, you know what? They're all good, and they're smart and they can make money.
Mhm.
Well, that what burns. Some of us live in that mythology, which we shouldn't be. That's what they labeled us, but we should break out of it, because right now, with COVID, since COVID-19, about 30% of our community is living in poverty.
Okay.
That's a number that's escalating, and that's higher than a lot of other communities during COVID-19 times.
Okay.
Um, a lot of the small businesses are who own small businesses are primarily Asian. We close our doors.
Mhm.
We are losing money profit wise on our businesses, and unfortunately, that goes into the poverty line. And this is a problem that we have, is that they say that we are quiet. We are not quiet.
Mhm.
We shouldn't be quiet. However, we're not getting the attention we need, because they're putting us saying like, you know what, they don't need the help. They got the money. They could do it. Why you need to protest? We give you everything.
Mhm.
Well, no. Well, we still have inequality issues because of the systemic racism that you have. The biggest one, since you brought up mental health, is that 1% of our health counselors are Asian. Less than 1%
Mhm.
of all healthcare workers nationwide are Asian. Asians have the highest suicide rate than any other group unreported.
Wonderful. Okay. Is this in response to what's happening now, or has this been an ongoing problem?
This is an ongoing problem, but it has increased since COVID-19 with the racism.
Mhm.
The feelings of not wanting to belong have increased, and this is something that I've been advocating, because I myself am studying mental health. I'm trying to become a spiritual counselor for my community. Number one, it's needed in our community because we lack of it, and number two, a lot of these counselors are all female. Very few of them are male. I'm a male. That's just like a gold ticket for me to work for them into helping my community, because we need more male counselors.
Yes.
The males are the most likely the ones who are gonna need the more help. The females, they also need help as well, but the males are the most likely are gonna commit the suicides.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now, in light of all the things that have been happening, what do you see are as some viable solutions to this issue of um, the attacks against the Asian community and Asian people? What are some solutions?
Well, the first solution I always say is, number one, patronize the business.
Hmm.
The business is one way of doing things. Promoting economic health. A lot of people are love Asian food. We all know that. Well, why don't you just patronize the business? The second part is to talk with them, uh, ask them, hi, how you're doing. Just to say hi, how you're doing will give you an open door ticket to open a conversation. I mean, I could tell you a lot of people ask me, I heard what's going on. They want to say hi, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? I always say that I'm always good, but I told them that like they said, oh, I saw what happened in the news. Just want to make sure that you mentally you're okay. I know you're fighting with it. I know you're fighting a good fight to represent your people. Keep on going. Don't stop. So these are encouragement, and these are people who are non-Asian that are telling me all these things that what I'm doing is good for my people. And he says, yes, we need to stop. And he says that like we ourselves need to educate ourselves into how to stop this kind of atmosphere of violence.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, there was a social media post that was posted. This is the day after I spoke to a university that was calling for a challenge, a version of a knockout challenge. It's called Slap an Asian challenge, where
Mm-hmm.
you pose a slap, where you basically it's a knockout version, but you're targeting the Asian community. So that is something that was going around. Unfortunately, it did hit Philadelphia. It looks like because what we heard in reports, and we were fighting about this hate crime issue with our DA. He's not charging, so we're arguing with him.
Mm-hmm.
However, when racial slurs were thrown out, and these two girls were slapped across the face by another group of people, what what are you gonna do? I mean, this is what happens. We have too many people bystanding, not doing anything, and and I just saw what happened when there's bystanders who are not going to who are not going to stand and watch this happening and actually going to stop it. And this happened on Sunday, and here in Philadelphia,
Mm-hmm.
where a male walked up to an Asian female. They were in a group, and it slapped one of them across the face and knocked her down. And then the bystanders checked on her and then chased after the guy, and they flagged down the police car and told him. So the police were able to arrest them on this, and they charged him with simple assault. However, this should be charged as a hate crime because this is ridiculous.
Indefinitely, yeah.
I already warned the police department that this challenge has gone out on social media, and they are aware of this, and they said that this is disgusting. Every single community relations officer I spoke to in Philadelphia told me this challenge is disgusting, and it needs to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just had a protest on Saturday in Philadelphia, calling to unite peacefully, and that we are all one, to unite and love each other as your neighbor. And I always said this: if you are whatever religious sect you are, does your religion actually tell you to hate people? I
Mm-hmm.
was wondering that because I could tell you that every single studies I have studied for every single religion does not say to hate your neighbor
Mm-hmm.
because God is love.
Mm-hmm.
God loves everyone, whatever, whoever you look like, and it doesn't matter if what color you are, what race you are.
Mm-hmm.
We're one body. We're the human race. We're all one race, the human race. And there's no religion that tells you to God they hate you.
Right,
That's not a God. That's the devil.
right. Okay. What are some other solutions to help in the community that people that are outside the Asian community? What are some other things that they can do to help?
Oh, absolutely. One thing is that I always encourage if you can check on the elderly, help the elderly out because they're the ones who are vulnerable to an attack. Sometimes if you can, if check on them. If they need something, go, be helpful to them. Be a good neighbor. If they need a ride to going to the doctors or ride to the pharmacy, if you're willing to and feel safe about it, offer them that ride to them because it just prevents them from taking a public transit or possibly getting the risk of getting an assault. There are many organizations that allows you to volunteer to help our seniors.
Mhm.
to help them. During these times that we're learning online, ESL is needed. We lost funding to ESL. So any
And
help that you could help our English second language learners
yeah, that's it.
in tutoring them, that will be a great help. A lot of our youth organizations always looking for volunteers to read to them, just to help them to understand English. You don't need to be an educator, but just be a tutor to them, to help them to understand. That's one thing that you could help as well. And the last one, is to work with our food providers, educate our food banks to saying that we need ethnic, culturally foods to our these neighborhoods, not just for the Asian community, but for all communities who are immigrant communities, because some of these foods are not culturally accepted or they don't know what that is. I could tell you that in some Latino cultures, you give them a squash, they don't know what that is. Certain squashes, they don't know what it is because they had never seen it before in their country.
Mhm.
Or something that another one is like collard greens. Asian people don't know what that is. They think they don't know how to cook with it. So you can't just assume that just because you got something from the food bank, you can give that person. I think that educating those food banks to be culturally accepted, culturally acceptable foods is very, very important, because that's what I've been doing here in Philadelphia. And we hand out culturally acceptable foods because they work with the larger and the smaller local shops. So you're producing local businesses to these local shops as well,
Mhm.
helping them to gain money, to saying, you know what, they're going to buy these pallets at bulk price, then that you could give out to those who are in need. So it's a two-way street, that the local owners feel that they're helping their community, as well as they're receiving money by these by these food banks that were willing to pay for these pallets at bulk price.
Okay. Okay. So that's a good start. Also, is there a way that people can um get involved? I mean, like if you can share some contact information for places where they can get involved with maybe a security task force, um, or any other, funding that helps with some of these initiatives we talked about. How can people donate or get involved?
Oh, absolutely. So I could actually post that for you in the box below.
Okay,
Um,
that'd be great. So we'll put
I
that
could
information
send
in.
that information out. One of them, actually, if you want to give to the AMF Giving Circle, Asian Mosaic Fund, that actually is the grant givers. So we work on giving grants to these organizations. Asian American Federation is the largest one. They could also use help. Philadelphia Chinatown Corporation, CMAC, Northeast Coalition. There's a lot of them I know in Philadelphia, but there's a lot of local organizations as well in their local Chinatowns
Mhm.
across the nation that could actually use help as well. Because I'm very familiar with Philadelphia, that's where I am. Those are the ones I'm familiar with, but there's many of them out there. But I'll be glad to post as many as I can in for you.
Okay, that
As
would be
well as to
helpful.
also volunteer. We do have a nationwide called Bystander Initiative. Is how to be a better bystander and not allow these things to happen, and teach you how to report this, or teach you how to, in the safeguard, fight back against these kind of attacks on people. It's sponsored by iHolaback, which is a nationwide organization that promotes civilian, I guess, civilian training on how to be a better witness,
Mhm.
to be a better witness to your neighbor. So they're offering these free. It's free. It's about an hour and a half long training, seminar training. It just tells you how to be a good bystander,
Okay.
and then and it's free. You don't have to pay nothing for it. It's sponsored. Like I said, it's sponsored by Ahio. Like, I just got an email, tons of emails about it, trying to pass it along to people who I think could use it.
Okay.
So that's something that would be useful. So those are the things I could right now think of off the top of my head that actually could be useful for all of your viewers.
Okay, that's great. And then also people, the powers in the people in our own communities. Um, all of them, we could come together and create our own task force. That is something that we can organize in our own cities, in our own towns, on our own, and just have a security task force or like a community watch where we look out for each other. We make sure that one another is protected and that any violence that we see, we stop it and we, take immediate action against it.
Well,
All right,
absolutely.
so
They have done that in San Francisco right now. San
okay, great.
Francisco have actually have a community town watch in Chinatown, San Francisco, because they have a high number of attacks. New York is now increasing that as well because they have the second largest number of attacks across the nation. So San Francisco and New York are our two highest areas where most Asians will be attacked. So
Okay,
therefore, we have our community watch. Philadelphia, we also have our own community watch groups that are being formed on a constant basis. So we are doing our own community watch groups, but New
great.
York and San Francisco actually will have a security team just because the number of attacks they have received is
Mhm.
astronomical compared to the other Chinatowns across the nation.
Okay then. All right then. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today and sharing your information and sharing, different ways how we can all get involved, and just also just the information that you share with us on the history of how far this goes back. And so, I appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing each other again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, sister.
Okay. All right. Peace and great blessings.
Peace, sister.